Hello. Hello again. I am back for another podcast. Um, I know I'm one day late on this one, but that's okay. I was deep in the trenches doing the work, and so I am back, and here I am to talk to you guys today about the Akashic Records. I was really excited to be talking to you guys about this. As I mentioned in at least one or two of my previous podcasts, I use this work. I use this work all the time. I use Reiki all the time. I use body talk all of the time. I use angels and guides all of the time. I use, what else did I speak to you guys about? The Akashic Records is the next one. I have been digging into the Akashic Records as well this past week, and or more so like using it when I see, like, when it feels right to do, like the situation calls for an Akashic record reading kind of thing. I jump in and I use the Akashic records. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys today about what are the Akashic records. Okay, so here we go. First off, I am Roxanne Valier. Welcome to my podcast, the little filly who couldn't be broke because she is still fighting her way through. You cannot lose my soul. I cannot lose my soul. I won't. So that's what I'm talking to you guys about today. I am the sole owner of Soul to Soul Healing. And when I first started Soul to Soul Healing, it was going to be all about using my horses to heal people. And along the way, I had to learn some of these techniques for healing, right? For healing. I was starting at that point when I created it in 2012. I was jumping headfirst into my own healing practices and or just experiences. And I'm just like, this is so awesome. I'm going to use my horses to do this. So it was all about energy and all about shifting and all about healing and all about transformation and all about just creating change. I got to a place in my life, and I still periodically get to places in my life, and I know it's time to do something about it when I say I can't do it like this anymore. So I got to a place in my life where I said, I can't do it like this anymore. Like, this isn't how life's gonna go. And so I looked for change and I found change. So yeah, it was pretty cool. So jumped right in. And you heard if you've listened to the previous podcast, you've heard most of the story along the way. I won't dive into some of the other experiences, but I started with Reiki, jumped into body talk, and my kids hit my glasses this morning, and now I feel like they're not sitting right. Anywho, and it kept going. I found the angels and, card readings and all of that stuff, stepped into my spirit guides and working with my spirit team and really trusting the universe and really trusting my intuition and all of that good stuff. And then it was from there I found the Akashic Records. I was reading a book and I'm like, I don't understand this word. I had to look it up in the dictionary, get the little dictionary guy on your phone to pronounce it to me. How do you pronounce the Akashic? Akashic, by the way, is a Sanskrit word, and it means, let me look it up. It's right here. It means, this is coming from, my teachings have come through Linda Howe, and down her lineage, if you call it that, line of teachers through Kevin Jackson, who's an amazing Akashic Records teacher. If you want to learn more about the Akashic Records, seek out Kevin Jackson. Akasha is a Sanskrit word meaning primary substance, that out of which all things are formed. So it's just like, it's the imprint of your soul. So as we describe it, we say it's your soul's records. It is the imprint of what your soul and the experiences have on the world, or the world has on your soul, right? So when I go into the Akashic Records and I open up my soul's records, it's kind of like going into a library of research. And when you get there, there's kind of like a gatekeeper, or my guide, my wisdom master is there, my wizard, and he's like the wizard of all knowing, and he's standing there. And he was my Reiki guide, and he was my mediumship guide, and he's also the guide because he's my soul guide, right? So he's also there to speak to me about the Akashic Records. So in my when I open up mine, everyone's Akashic Records, right, look and feel a little bit different depending on their soul. They're their soul records. So I thought that was so beautiful because I am the girl who's all about soul, connection, this soul connecting to that soul, and healing our souls and finding our souls and stepping into who we really are, and all things about that. That I love this, and I had to pursue it, and I had to. And even like I had to go down that road. I had to pursue that journey, right? So even when I was in those classes, I'm just like, why can't we hang out in this place like all the time? Why can't this be our like day-to-day experience? This is our soul. Why can't we be with our soul all the time? And we are, but when we go into the Akashic Records, it's kind of like, how do I want to word this? I was going to say like, it's like we are looking down on ourselves from like the heavens, or we like leave our body just to be with our soul. And our soul has a body too, right? We have a body. And so we're also here on this earth, and we're also human. So we also have to come back, and we also have to get grounded, which I didn't like because I loved hanging out with my soul, because it was my truth, and I just wanted to stand in and always be in my truth. But here we are, humans in a human body. So I want to tell you a few things that I learned through, and that I keep going back through the Akashic Records. So through my teachings, through my experiences of diving deep into the Akashic Records, this is some of the stuff that I want to bring forward to you guys. So Akashic Records aren't just for people. Akashic Records, they work amazing for people, but you can open up an animal's Akashic Records. You can open up a home and land, or a monument, or a government piece of land, or a park or something. You can open up a company, and this is actually what my experience has kind of turned into. So you can open up a company's soul records, or corporation, or an entity, in the way of like, if it's like a foundation or something like that, right? And because each thing, a company is different than, or an organization is different than just the people that are running it, right? Like it's kind of got its own thing. So you can open it up, and there's a cat hair in my lip balm. There we go. It's hard to speak with cat hair. So it's different than just the person. If you are like a one-man show kind of thing, though, too, it's still different. Like it's still, you have created something different than you and beyond you, right? Yes, it's still your creation, but it's beyond, like it's something, it's a different entity. Does that make sense? So we can open up the records of, and that's actually what I did. So actually the last thing I want to say is that we can open up the records to create. So when we open up the records like of our own soul, of our own self, our creations start to flow through. So that's actually, once I started getting into my healing, and once I started doing my healing, and my healing started to feel better, I started to feel better in my body, I started to feel better in my emotions, I started to feel better in my thoughts and my patterns and stuff. I started to use the Akashic Records to create my life, to manifest, to create the things that I wanted to create, right? So I'd go in to my business records, and I'd be like, what what wants to be created through this business? And this is where I kind of got some information and some nudges and some inspiration, some like sparks. It like ignited the energy of creation, and really stepped into what it was that my business wanted to create, what it was that my home, how my home wanted to be created, how my life wanted to be created, and what I could, like, going into my own Akashic Records, how, not necessarily how I wanted to be created, but different things, like what came next in life, like how I wanted to create my life, like what was happy, what was healthy, what was the next steps in my life. So I really started to use the Akashic Records to create my life and to like manifest and step into the next layers and the next levels and get through the challenges of the next levels and really continue to work through it. So I don't actually use the Akashic Records for animals all that much. It absolutely could be. I just usually fall back onto, actually I have, not a lot, but I'm just like, yes, I have. I've used it for a couple different animals, but I usually fall back on my regulars is going into Reiki or going into Body Talk. But I do use the Akashic Records, and I guess I have used the Akashic Records for animals for sure. So it's got so many different purposes. Okay, moving on. Another thing that I love about the Akashic Records, it helped me. I already did this, as I was telling you, like I already wrote out my story. I already kind of identified and started to make lists and started to really get clear on and was starting to get clarity about the problems, the situations, the experiences, what was coming up for me. I would go back and I would go forward and I would be present with what was coming up for me. But in the Akashic Records, there's a 3-part system. So I was already kind of following this 3-part system. But in the Akashic Records, in the teachings, I guess, in Linda Howe's teachings, she laid out this 3-part system. So the first one is to tell your story. Just get clear and just get it all out. Just get it all out. And I already kind of did that, right? So the second part is to identify the causes and conditions, I think she says. But so then really get the clarity. So at first it's just kind of like a brain dump, right? Like you just kind of emotion dump, just get it all out. And so we just write, journal, talk, whatever the heck we need to do. Get it all out and then identify the underlying causes and conditions. So again, I was already doing this, really starting to identify, like, this is the whole story. This 1, 2, or 3 things is the underlying issues. So this is the issues that we are then going to go forward and deal with. And the rest of it can just be part of the story, right? And then the third piece is, because once we find those causes and conditions, then that's where the healing comes in. That's where the transformation comes in. That's where the shift of perspective comes in. That's where, I was going to say the shift, but that's, so the shift and the healing and all of the changes that we're looking for, that's where they come in. As we identify those, we can start to say, well, that's not how I want it to go, right? That's, and how could that be different? Or how can I see that different? Or what's really going on underneath that? And so you really dig into that, and that's where the work is, and that's where the healing happens. And then after that, beyond that, then it's really sinking into, it's like, okay, I found a new perspective. I found kind of a new way to be with this story, a new way to be with this situation, a new way to be with this experience. And then the third thing is just to sink into, settle into, understand what is the soul level truth. So I just keep saying, like, the truth. like, what is the absolute truth? What is God's truth? What is the universal truth? What is the truth rather than the story, right? And it's like once we kind of get to the bottom of things, the truth just kind of falls into place. The healing just kind of falls there. But if we haven't gotten to the place of, so I know within my body and I know within myself, I know within my emotions and my mind and even like my spiritual being, right? My energy, my energetic being. If I haven't gotten to the place of the soul level truth, if I haven't gotten to that place of everything is right in the world, it wasn't right when I was telling my story. It wasn't right when I was coming up with the causes and conditions. But if I have not gotten to the place of everything is perfect, everything is right, there's absolutely nothing wrong in the world right now, even if this happened, the healing hasn't been completed. So getting to that place of having it healed, getting to that place of, and it's hard to say what that looks like, but it looks beautiful and it looks miraculous and it feels good in your body and it feels uplifting and it feels like light and it feels or like love, and it feels like peace. It feels like peace. Like there's peace within your heart. There's peace within your body. And so you're getting to that soul level truth. So if we haven't gotten to that place, we're still on number 2, the causes and conditions, and working through the healing of it all. Sometimes there's layers to a story. Sometimes you have to heal more than one thing. Sometimes there's just more than just one tiny little thing to work through. So just continue in the depths of it until you get to what is the soul level truth? What is the truth? How do we get back to everything is perfect exactly how it is? And if I don't get there, I know I'm not done. I know that's the soul level truth. I know it. Okay. I needed to get that out. I needed you guys to know that. That's how we know that the healing has been completed. That's how we know that we've come back, we've stepped back into the truth of who we are. Is that everything just seems right with the world. Everything just seems so perfect. Even if it's not. But instead of sitting here and just believing it's not perfect, moving through it and getting to the place where it is perfect, that's the work. That's the work. Okay. Okay. Another thing that the Akashic Records brought forward for me, look at my little baby hairs. Okay, we'll just put the hair back. I'm sorry for the podcasters who can't see the video. I just tucked my hair behind my ears and my little baby hairs stuck out. So we'll just put my hair back. So another thing that the Akashic Records led me down was ancestral healing and healing of past lives. There may have been mention of these in other places, in other spaces before, but this is where it really opened up for me. This is where, well, I mean, as I mentioned, the ancestral healing started with me digging into my lineage and really understanding my story and understanding my family. So when I got to this place, when I got to the Akashic Records, it's like, here, I'm going to give you a modality to help you move through your ancestral karma, your ancestral lineages, and help do the work. So the two things that they like, so obviously, I guess the 3 is number 1, digging into our own stuff, our own experiences, our own stories, right? But our own stories are attached to the lineages of our ancestors, and they're attached to our reincarnations. They're attached to our past lives. I have 4 actually. There is our experiences here, our ancestral past lives. So generational trauma would be our ancestral trauma. Okay, so I think the 4th one that I have depicted in some of my other, like as I speak about this stuff, is that some of it, so when I do the ancestral healing, some of it is just like in our DNA, right? And I've actually been digging into this a lot lately. This is what I've been kind of doing, is digging into like, what is just kind of like written in our DNA? What is like our personalities, or what habits have we come up with? And then some of it is like experienced patterns. But I could put those together, but they are a bit different. So I could put a little bit under like the ancestral lineage, like that would be your DNA patterns. Things like, and for an example of that would be like in my past, in my family's past, I have Métis heritage in me, and my family was part of like the Riel resistance and some of the very early Canadian historical, it wasn't actually at Batoche, but some of the Riel stuff that went on in Manitoba and then actually in Saskatchewan. So they were a part of both of it. And then afterwards, like the fallout of that, my family still holds the karma of that, right? So they still hold some of the anger. They still hold some of the shame. And that's what they're passing on. They don't sit around and tell us, this happened, this happened, this happened. I actually had to look that up. Like, we don't talk about it and we don't dig into it. But that space of shame, blame, fear, guilt, grief, all of those emotions still sit there. Unworthiness, it kind of weighs heavy. And that's what I'm talking about, is that I went back into my ancestral lineage and healed some of the past stuff, because it didn't happen to me. It didn't happen to me, but it got carried down in the DNA. So we actually hold on to our lineage. I've heard, I think it's like a Native American or indigenous saying, I'm not sure. It might be in other cultures as well. 7 generations forward and 7 generations back. That might actually be in the Bible too. I'm not exactly sure who all speaks of it, but that is exactly, I've heard that. I think Crystal Andress said something about 7 generations. So when I started doing my ancestral, like my research, right? Like into all of the lines and who's my grandma, who's my grandpa, how many kids do they have, all of that research. I wanted to go 7 generations back, and I can actually feel the energy, especially like even like 4 or 5 generations is pretty easy to feel. The 6th and 7th one feel like it's fading a little bit. But I can definitely still feel into it. And I'm sure actually if I went back farther than that, I could still feel into it, but it does kind of fade out a little bit. And then we influence the generations, obviously 7 generations forward. Like if we can still feel 7 generations back, we would be the 7th generation for like our kids' kids, or however many, right? Forward. So 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. And so that's the research that I wanted to do. I wanted to at least get 7 generations back in all aspects. in all frameworks. So like every single lineage, starting with my mom and my dad, and then each of my grandparents and each of my great grandparents, and it becomes a lot, and it becomes some pretty heavy duty research or whatever. But that is the energy that we hold. Now, because like we don't get everything. We don't get everything, right? Our siblings are unique, like same parents, same two parents, possibly, right? So like our full siblings would have the same two parents as us, and they aren't the same person as us, right? We get a different handful of the DNA, right? So we resonate with different aspects of the story. We pick up on different pieces of the puzzle. We don't get all of it. We don't have to resonate with all of it. So whatever it is that we're resonating with, whatever it is that we're holding on to, whatever it is that's within us, it's within us to change. It's within us to heal. It's within us to move through and move past and move beyond. Now, what I was talking about was the stuff that didn't happen to us, but we still carry resonance of it. Then there's the pieces that we did experience. So we did experience, let's say if we're in a family with like abuse of some kind. Well, we did experience the abuse, right? We did experience the situation. The pattern came down to us, and we did experience it. Or something happened in our lifetimes or a parent's lifetime, and that experience was had in our lifetime. But it's a pattern that gets handed down, like, or addictions, kind of get handed down in the way of, well, my parents smoked, so I'm going to start smoking. My parents drank, or my grandparents or whomever, drank. So it's their patternings that get handed down, or maybe overeating, or, overworking, being the funny guy and not, addressing the truth, like of the feelings or of the situation. So those are the two pieces of ancestral healing. So there is just our stuff. So moving on to past lives. So essentially you get a handful of the DNA that you come in with. So this energy, this soul is floating around in heaven. It's floating around out there. And it's just like, this is already like my past lives, my past experiences. This is already what I resonate with. And we're kind of like, hey, cool. This family resonates with how I'm already, how my energy, how my soul already is. So experiences from past lives can kind of mirror or whatever. So if we come into, like, let's say an abusive family now or whatever, perhaps we, in a past life, resonated with or had the experience of, abuse in a past life and or lineage. So it can be and or. So we kind of been like, this soul is coming into this life because it resonates with this family. It chooses. Your soul chose your family, right? And so it chose that family because it resonated with it, because it still had lessons, it still had experiences, it still had growth, like places to grow, right? It still had, I want to say, like lessons to learn. And it's kind of that, but it's just kind of like the learning is the growth, right? So yes, there's still places to learn, there's still places to grow. And so it just wants you to move through soul school and learn your lessons and continue to evolve and continue to grow and continue to step up and step forward and move past what you've already experienced. Okay? Make sense? So we can go into ancestral healing and we can go into heal our past lives. Now, I do want to talk about or just say one little thing about that, is that we don't just go into the Akashic Records for fun and be like, hey, cool, can I see my past lives? We go into only the past lives that are resonating with this life. What is coming up in this moment right now? So number one, we tell our story. What's coming up in this story? Okay, that resonates, or our subconscious is bringing up something about a past life, something that happened to us in a past life, so we can heal it. It comes up for the healing, it comes up for the experience, it comes up for the growth process. Make sense? Okay, we don't just open it up and just be like, hey, I just want to watch or view my past lives. It's not quite like that at all. Okay, still tucking my hair. I want to move on to, this is a little bit of a, I shouldn't say lighter topic. Ancestral stuff or healing stuff can get quite deep and can get quite dark or painful, moving through feelings like anger and resentment and blame and shame and fear, and bringing up our phobias and bringing up those experiences that were so painful. But that's how we get through them. That's how we get through them. Okay. So a little bit more lighthearted. Or actually, I'm going to put it like this. Another thing that the Akashic Records really brought forward for me, or simplified, like all of these modalities, I want to just say, talk about the same things in a different way. It's a different way to approach very similar things. Like it's just a different way of healing. It's a different way of reading it, like reading the energy. It's a different way of sitting with it. It's a different way of understanding it. But essentially, they're all talking and speaking about very, very similar things. So the first one, which way do I want to speak about these? I'm just going to throw them both at you. Acceptance and forgiveness. These have been the two biggest words in my entire healing journey. Acceptance and forgiveness. If you can't, if you can't forgive, you have to accept. It's not quite like that. They're kind of the same thing, and yet they're a little bit different. So forgiveness is not for anyone else. It's for you. It's for you to make peace with a situation. Let me repeat that. Forgiveness is for you. It's for you to make peace with a situation, an experience that you've been through, or a story that you're still telling. Something has happened to you and you can't quite get through it. The two places that I go to are acceptance and forgiveness. They're kind of the same thing, but they're a little bit different. So how do I want to explain this? I feel like these concepts they're just huge. They're just everything. They're just all of the information in two words. Acceptance. Of course it happened. Of course it happened. Of course you felt like that. Of course you believed that. Had that belief system. Of course you were angry. Of course they said that because that's what they believed. So they said that because that's what they believed. So can you accept that that's what happened? Because it couldn't have been any other way. It couldn't have been any other way. And forgiveness is like, can you forgive them? Can you forgive them? Because it couldn't have been any other way. But forgiveness is also like walking in their shoes. So it's understanding their side of the story. So when I forgive someone, I'm like, I move through the process of, I kind of sit down in a meditation or a present moment, kind of open up the space. And I sit down and I think about that person. And I think, what have they gone through? What have they experienced? How is it that they could show up like that? You know what I mean? Even in the worst situations. Even in the worst of situations. How can that person show up like that? Because they've had these experiences that have led them to that moment. They have these belief systems, these thoughts, these emotions that have led them to that moment. So of course, that would be their next action. Can you forgive them? Because they didn't know any better. They didn't know any better at the time. So can you forgive them? I feel like there's a few of you out there listening to this right now, moving through this process, and I'm so proud of you. This has healed me 1,000,000 times over, moment to moment to moment. Can I forgive the car that just passed me, that cut me off? Can I forgive my children for not knowing any different? Can I forgive my family members? Can I forgive my friends? Can I forgive my neighbors? Can I forgive the person on the news? Can I forgive the doctor, or the teacher, or the professional of in some sort of capacity? Like I want to say like the police, the politicians. Can I forgive them? Because of course they would do that, because they didn't know any better. They didn't know any better. They did the best they could at the time. That's what they knew how to do at the time. So can I forgive them for doing their best? Yeah, I think I can. And we're not done. Can I forgive myself? Can I forgive myself? Can I forgive myself for that experience, for not knowing any better, for the reaction, the way I reacted, for not understanding their side of the story, for taking on their belief systems or following in their guidance when it was not necessary, kind of thing? Can I forgive myself? And I say that because a lot of my forgiveness was as a child. So it's like, can I forgive my parents? Can I forgive my teachers? Can I forgive my neighbors? Can I forgive the professionals, right, in my life? Because they're just human. And I was following them because I was a child and I didn't know any better. So it's like, can I forgive myself for not knowing any better? But now that I'm an adult, this even works as an adult, right? In the relationships and the friendships that I have now. It's like, can I forgive myself in this relationship with my friend or whomever? I did the best I could at the time. Of course I can forgive myself. Of course I can forgive myself. One of the hugest practices in my life, and yes, my glasses are completely crooked for when I'm sorry for the podcasters that are listening to this. My glasses are completely crooked from when Peanut hit me in the face. Anywho, moving on to acceptance. Can I accept this? Can I just accept? Can I accept that this is the amount of money in my bank account? Can I accept that this is the house I live in? Can I accept that this is the vehicle I drive, or that I don't have a vehicle, even maybe I long for one? Can I accept that I'm single and not in a relationship? Can I accept that this is the relationship that I chose to be in? And once we get to full acceptance, let me repeat, once we get to full acceptance of the situation can then change, and not until. So both forgiveness and acceptance are the pieces that we use to move through those causes and conditions. So first we tell the story, and there's this whole story of crap that, experiences and situations, and so said this, and so did this, and this is how it turned out, and I thought I had this, and and like I wanted more, and I feel like I deserve more, and here's our story. And once we get to those causes and conditions, it's like, what caused this? Usually what caused it is us needing to accept, or us needing to forgive. So that's where we bring in the forgiveness and the acceptance into the equation, the healing, the shifting, the moving through the whole situation. And it feels like it just like transforms it, like boom, blow it out of the water, right? Like, whoop. I'm shaking my desk. My little podcasters, my audio podcasters. Okay. That's where it shifts. Moving through the forgiveness, moving through to that, feel that acceptance. That's where we find the soul level truth. That's where we get to the soul level truth. So sometimes it's just our experience that we've experienced in this life. Sometimes it's ancestral karma. Sometimes it's past life karma that we have to go in and heal. Sometimes it's entwined in our DNA. Sometimes it's a real experience that we've had. And this can happen, and this can get like unwound and healed and shifted. And once we get to that soul level truth, we change our story. We change our story. So I'm trying to bring this all together in the way of, when our story changes, the energy changes. And when the energy changes, this is how I kind of want to say, it starts to and begins to change the relationships that we're in. It changes the situations and circumstances that we're in. So if we feel shameful about our financial situation, once we do this work and remove the shame, honestly, our finances can just begin to flow and overflow. Like, that's pretty fucking spectacular by just going through a few sessions or experiences that help us rewrite our energy and retell our story and get to the soul level of truth of who you are. Because as I explained earlier, The soul level truth of who you are is light, it's love, it's empowered, it's peace, it's joy. It's joy. And as I talk about this, there is it's Dr. David Hawkins wrote a book, Power versus Force. And he outlines the vibrations. So as energy is all vibrations, he outlines the vibrations, and he outlines that, yes, we can hang out in depression and anxiety and fear and shame and guilt and resentment and all of the things. But they're way down here. They resonate at like 100 or something, like way down at a very, very low vibration. And when we get to the soul level truth, like if we thought 100 was pretty good, our soul level truth is like 1,000. So it's like 10 times, 100 times, whatever, 1,000 times. Like it is so much lighter. It's so much lighter to move through. So much more expansive. We are so much more than our fear. We're so much more than the stories we tell. We're so much more than our experiences. We're so much more than our shame. We are so much more. Like what we really, really feel or think is love is not. It's not. What most human beings believe is actually love is usually an attachment to a person, and which is an unhealthy attachment, which is an unhealthy love relationship. That doesn't mean that two souls did not align. Two souls very well could have aligned. I have found very many relationships that have come together because their souls have aligned. But they're in an unhealthy relationship because their ego, because their humanness, because their attachments, and once we remove all of this stuff, once we get to move through these stories, once we get through the healings, once we get through the transformation, we can create a healthy relationship. And that healthy relationship will have a healthy form of love. So I'm not saying that love's not necessarily there underlying everything, but again, like the shame and the blame and the fear and the guilt and the grief and all of the things, the resentments, all of the attachments that we hold on to is there as well. And as we move through those, then we can get to a more healthy relationship. Okay. I think that's it for the Akashic Records. That was kind of a big one. They're all kind of big. That's why I like them. They're all very, very transformational. They all dive really, really deep into the underlying causes, into the energetic causes, into the causes and conditions, right, of the story that we're telling ourselves. So instead of just repeating the same story, instead of just repeating the same habits, instead of just living a life with the same belief systems that really can't get us to the next level without moving through or healing them, we dive deep and we heal the underlying causes and conditions of. And like I said, that could be from this lifetime, that could be from past lifetime, that can be from your ancestral karma. And we shuffle all that crap around and we get to the bottom of all of it. And what you're left with is just you. What you're left with is your soul's truth. And again, let me repeat that. What you're left with is your soul's truth. Okay. I actually thought this one was going to be pretty quick, but I love the Akashic Records. I love them all So where can you find me? You can find me on my website, soultosoulhealing.ca. You can find me on social media. Facebook is the best place. You can also find me on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on YouTube if you haven't found me on YouTube already. And obviously you can find me here on my podcast. So jump over to my website is probably a very good place to start. You can find out everything that I have to offer. You can obviously choose any of these healing modalities. I will be getting into some of the other ones, and I've already spoke about, so you can listen to some of the other podcasts of Reiki, Body Talk, Angels, and I'm going to go on to just turn the page here. Mediumship and healing with the horses and all of the other things. So I also have home and land clearings. I also have hand analysis. I also offer Reiki, the online courses. I am right in the middle, in the depths of creating my mediumship online courses. So those will be ready this spring. 100% they're going to be universe. They're going to be ready this spring. I am right in the middle of creating that. And it feels really, really good. Like that's part of why I'm a little late with this podcast is I was diving deep and digging in and writing my mediumship course. And while I was doing that, I was also in the deep depths of healing a lot of stuff that was coming up for others and myself as I move through. So as I create something, just a side note, it actually helps heal me first. I have to get to the bottom of my truth of the matter, of my healing in the matter. And I continue to move through those layers as I teach it. But as I'm writing it, I have to find my truth to put that truth on the page. And so I have to dig through all of my dirt first before I can offer you the lightness. So I was doing all of my stuff. And so it was just a lot of digging and a lot of writing and a lot of creating. So it was pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But here I am on the next podcast, and the next one coming up will be mediumship. So you'll get to hear all about that stuff, and I will tell you all about that stuff. That should be released sometime mid-April. They are every 2 weeks. I don't have a calendar in front of me. But it will be released on time. Fingers crossed. And then I go on from there. So there's all of the things, and you can find them all on, like I said, my social media, my podcasts, and my website. Okay, I will see you guys on the next one. Whew. And have fun moving through your forgiveness. Have fun moving through or sinking into your acceptance and telling your story. It really is the place to start. It really is the place to start. And if you need someone to help you and sit with you as you tell your story, as you move through your story, you know how to get a hold of me. You know that I'm always available. This room here, this bed, is waiting for you and your story. So, or we can do it a distance as well. So I will chat with you guys soon.